to Revolution Report, the show that highlights pressing issues, uplifts community voices, and questions the status quo. I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
And I'm Analisa Venolia.
We felt the need to dive deeper into societal problems and explore subjects from diverse perspectives. So join us in the revolution. This week, Analisa is talking to lead sustainability specialist at California State University Northridge, Sarah Johnson. They talked about everything from community gardens and food pantries to making sustainability actually more sustainable. Sarah Johnson also gives tips on everyday actions people can take to be more eco-friendly. It was a really riveting conversation. We hope you learned something and enjoy listening.
Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about sustainability and the environment. Let's get started. CSUN is a model of sustainability for universities and establishments across the country. What changes has CSUN been making to be more sustainable?
Yeah, great question. I would say I've been at CSUN for 15 years now, just celebrated 15 years at CSUN, plus years before that as a student. So I've seen a lot of changes, luckily, in the time that I've been here. This ones that stand out to me really are trying to create a more intentional education for our students. So kind of the newest example would be our master's program in sustainability. So it's something that was a long time coming, a lot of work in the making. And we just, in this past spring, graduated our first cohort of students from the master's in sustainability. So now there's an option for students to get a formal education. Whereas before that, we have a minor in sustainability, but we still don't have a undergraduate bachelor's degree program. So I'd say through formal education, definitely with the minor and then the master's program. But I would also say with our roadmap to sustainability. So we just recently, last June now, it's been a year, launched a 10-year plan for sustainability. And so this is really a way to help us be more accountable to what we're doing on campus and more intentional again, but also providing opportunities for folks to get involved and having these 10 different areas that we're focusing on. So really just trying to make it very transparent and have a lot of opportunities for folks to get involved in all of the work that we're doing.
That all sounds fantastic. And congratulations on that graduating class. That's really exciting.
It's really exciting, yeah.
So focusing in a little bit more, CSUN has a robust community garden. What's being grown and how is it being grown?
Great question. So yeah, we have a garden. There's multiple gardens on campus, but the Institute for Sustainability specifically operates a garden, which is actually an acronym. So GARDEN actually stands for Growing Accessible Resources for Diversity and Education and Nourishment, I think. It's a long acronym, but we worked with actually a student design team, Intersect LA, if you know them, to help us come up with the branding and stuff for it. But up at the garden, we really try to focus on seasonality. So growing things, that are able to grow in the climate that we're in. So, San Fernando Valley is very hot, so there's not much growing right now. We've had all these days with triple digits. So this is kind of the off season. Our really big, heavy growing season is more winter and spring. But we really do try to grow, and all the food that we grow goes to the CSUN Food Pantry and to our volunteers. So we try to grow things that people like. So that's a lot of tomatoes when they're in season, a lot of greens, like leafy greens. We have about 50 fruit trees. So the fruit is really popular. We grow, as soon as it grows and is ripe, it's pretty much distributed and given away and eaten. So yeah, lots of citrus, peaches, plums, blueberries, blackberries.
It all sounds so delicious. So on a more home level, garden maintenance can definitely be a little difficult. Do you have any recommendations for alternatives or eco-friendly options for traditional pesticides?
Definitely, I would say a little bit of involvement goes a long way. So tending to your garden and being aware, keeping an eye on it is I forget the saying, but kind of preventative measures are much more effective than trying to remove pests once they've already taken over your garden. So if you're out there, it's just good for you mentally anyway. If you make it kind of part of your practice in your daily routine to go out and just check on stuff for a few minutes every day, you can start seeing problems happening before they become a huge issue. And then it's easier to mitigate any issues. So if you notice that you do start having some type of pest problem, then you can kind of look it up and see what the problem is, where you don't have to use, synthetic pesticides and things like that. And there's a lot of resources too about companion planting, which is really things that you can plant together, that there are certain plants that are natural pest deterrents, like mint and citronella, and there's a lot so that other pests don't like. So if you plant those with your prized tomatoes, then they're less likely to be prone to getting pests. So definitely just be involved, be out there, see what's growing, but also don't be too hard on yourself if something does take over your garden. That's what their job is to eat what's out there. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself and just kind of use it as a learning experience for growing things the next season.
Yeah, that's really useful advice. Thank you so much. I love learning that like mint is a companion plant that like is a natural deterrent. That's so cool.
Yep.
Earlier, you had mentioned the produce being distributed to food pantries. We know that the food grown in CSUN's gardens is not only distributed to CSUN's food pantry, but also to food pantries across Los Angeles County. Could you speak a bit about the importance of community gardens and food pantries as a resource?
Absolutely. So, I had mentioned briefly in the San Fernando Valley, it's really hot, like it's hard to grow a lot of food outside. And so we don't have a lot of commercial agriculture like directly in this area, but the more that folks can do gardening on a small scale and share with others, then it helps reduce food insecurity. So, focusing more on a community shared model and shared resources. The other big asset I'll say for that is the CSUN Orange Grove. And we have 400 trees of oranges growing on campus. And so those are also another resource where we harvest the fruit and give them out to the local community. So really just kind of doing a community assessment to see what your resources are and finding ways to be creative on how to distribute them to people in need, I think is really effective. And, it's just a great use of resource because we know that there's so much food that goes to waste and we have so many hungry people. So it seems like one of those problems that's not necessarily simple or easy to solve, but there are solutions that we're trying to work towards for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I don't know, I just think if the everyday person gets that encouragement, hey, I could start growing things in my own yard and like giving them to my neighbors,
Yep.
or get involved in their community to start their own community garden. I think that that would be wonderful because it's not just them benefiting, but the whole community that is then able to use that as a resource and also potentially save money not buying expensive produce with Kroger jacking up the prices of things, which they admitted they did.
Exactly.
So
be less reliant on super chain grocery stores. So
yeah, and then obviously like the impact on the environment is less when there aren't those transportation of the produce because you can just walk over to the garden and get it yourself. And so there's not like gas being used on like the big trucks and things like that.
And all the plastic packaging to pack all the food.
Absolutely. Yes. There's all these little things that we don't think about that just add to our general consumption. I wasn't even thinking about packaging. That's wow. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah. So many pieces to it for sure. That's a lot of benefits to eating locally.
Yeah.
You just get to have more adventurous eating too, right? You get to try new things and,
And it's seasonal. You're eating the food when it's in season, when it should be grown. So
exactly. Yeah. It's not normal to be able to eat strawberries every day of the year. Like that's not how it used to be. So
correct. Yeah. I'm a big fan of buying local produce.
Yeah.
So community gardens and food pantries help on a larger scale, but scaling it down a bit, what are some everyday things that individual people can do to reduce their waste and energy consumption?
Yeah, I mean, so many things, honestly. And I think this is one of those areas where a lot of times folks get kind of overwhelmed with the options. And so I would suggest for folks to like think of what resonates with you. So like if you're passionate about transportation, maybe look into, riding a bike a few days a week. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So don't be like, oh, I have to sell my car and, convert completely, or I have to become vegetarian or vegan. Taking baby steps and knowing that those baby steps have an impact. And then your like passion and enthusiasm about it, of sharing those things with others, I think it goes a long way as well. So like another great example is with food. So, you don't have to cut meat completely out of your diet, because there's a lot of research that shows that meat is, really uses a ton of resources and is really hard on the planet. But don't shame yourself for eating a cheeseburger. That's not the goal of it. The goal really is to be more thoughtful of like knowing where your food comes from, what impacts it does have, and making different choices when those resources are available to you. So there's so many things, I could name little things like getting your own water bottle. I think is a great one to start with. Like, I have this reusable water bottle. I carry it with me everywhere. And it's one of those things where people, I think there's a misconception that it's more expensive because you buy some fancy expensive water bottle. But a lot of times people already have a water bottle in their cabinet anyway, or you can get one for really cheap. And then it's a one-time investment, and you can pretty much get cold, chilled, filtered water most places that you go now. And just the cost savings over time of not buying bottled water, it saves a ton, and then the amount of plastic too. So that's like one of those things that's kind of a simple thing you can implement into your daily schedule, that really can make a big difference. But I really would say just looking at what's important to you, whether it's food or transportation or plastic waste, all of those things, and see how you can incorporate small changes over time.
Yeah, I really love what you said about it can be little small changes. Because it does seem daunting often to say to individuals, oh, the weight of like saving the earth is on your shoulders. Yeah, having that like, oh, a little change here and there helps, and like that gradual progression. Something my family's done is we don't eat red meat because my mom's allergic, so we just don't eat it at all. So on the occasional instance, my dad's sister and I will get something when we're like out at a restaurant, once every 3 months or so. But we also have started to try to cut down on the amount of chicken we eat in a week, and get our protein from other sources, just because,
Totally.
the environmental impact of eating meat in general is not always the best, and not trying to shame anyone for eating meat, because people need to eat food. That is a fact. But that's just like a slight change that we've been making. We're not cutting out chicken entirely.
Yeah.
We're just trying to slightly reduce how much we eat it each week.
Yeah,
And
just to add to that too, like that's another common misconception, is that it's more expensive to be vegan, and it's actually cheaper if you look at like the price of proteins. A lot of plant-based protein sources are usually cheaper than meat. So like if you switch to lentils or quinoa, or there's even, like broccoli and peas have protein in them. People don't think of peas as having protein, but there are a lot of plant-based proteins that's actually more affordable and like easier to access than like free range organic chicken, which can be like $20 a pound or something, like you can spend much more money
not quite that much, but
yeah. I'm exaggerating, but yeah.
As someone who buys the free range organic, our listeners, it's not quite that much.
Maybe $8 a pound, $10 a pound. Yes. But compared to like a pound of quinoa, it's much more expensive, for like the same grams of protein.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to suggest this to our listeners, a change my family made in the past couple years, which at first seemed really odd to me. I will be so honest. I was really disoriented and was like, this is just weird. But I got used to it, and now it's just a everyday part of my routine. Is my mom got us these collapsible buckets that we put underneath the shower head while the water is heating up. And we save the water. And then, when it's time to shower, we just take the bucket out, pop in, water's warm, and then we take that water, and the next morning, when we need to water our plants in the yard, we use the water that we collected from the shower when the water was heating up, instead of using new water, and just so we are able to repurpose that water instead of it just running down the drain. And that's pretty helpful. You're not going to be able to water your lawn like that, but like, those other plants are able to get some water that way instead of having to rely on a new source.
Yeah, and that's a great example too of saving water, but also saving money. Like that, your water bill is hopefully reduced a little bit depending on how many showers you take in a month. That adds up. So it's helping save money and save water. So there's a lot of sustainable switches like that, like just little, like you said, little changes to your routine that can have a big impact over time.
Yeah. And also, just to listeners, even though the change may seem really odd at first, if you keep it up, you will become used to it. It will become a habit, because like I said, I was so weirded out by those buckets at first, but now it's just every day, time to take the bucket in. Oh, time to take it out. So
Totally. Yeah, that's, I mean, another good example of that is like bringing our bags to the grocery store, right? Now, most of us probably don't even think about it. And when that first started, it was like, how am I going to remember to bring these bags and store them in my car? And now it's just, part of our common culture. So,
Yeah. I also like building off of that, bags. I want to recommend that people bring reusable produce bags as well. So that way they're not just using like the plastic ones from the
yeah,
store, but you can buy reusable produce bags, or sometimes you don't even need them.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so
I just set everything in my cart, usually like avocados and stuff. If there's not a bunch of them or cucumbers, you can just set them gently in your cart and then put them in your bag. Yeah. You don't
exactly.
need a bag.
Just because it's convention that you have to stick them in a plastic bag doesn't mean you actually have to. Now, speaking a lot more generally, um, statistically, women are more interested in sustainability than men. Why do you think that is? And then branching off of that, how can we get more people involved and invested in sustainability?
Good question. I've thought a bit about that. I'm a mom. I have two kids, and I really feel like after being a mom, like I was into sustainability before, but I think it comes back to like Mother Earth and like our like internal instinct or drive to nurture and to take care of each other and take care of our planet is part of that. And so I think we have more kind of awareness or concern for like future generations. So, it's just that nurturing part of us, I think, that wants to nurture the planet, nurture the people in our planet. And then, I think for men, like there's definitely men obviously interested in sustainability, but in general, I would say men's brains are more focused on like solutions and like problem solving, and maybe in some ways more technical. Obviously that's like a very broad generalization, but like the more technical side. But I will say, just from my experience, it's a lot of times of women focusing on wanting to build community and help support each other, and that's kind of what sustainability is all about. So it seems like women are kind of just more drawn to the field.
Yeah, probably because of the way that we're socialized is to practice that empathy, practice that nurturing side more, whereas men are more socialized to like think a certain way. Like you were talking about that generalization more technically, but like
Yeah,
realistically, historically, men have been far more encouraged to pursue STEM than women have. Women have,
exactly. That's just
been
what the examples have shown to them in the past. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
it seems to like root back to that sort of systemic socialization.
Yeah. There was a second part to your question that I forgot though.
Yes, no worries. How can we get more people like broadly involved and invested in sustainability?
Yeah, great question. And we talk about this a lot. And I think that's part of why we put our sustainability plan together with the 10 different focus areas, is really broadening that definition of sustainability and not even necessarily using the word sustainability. Because there are so many people doing sustainability that don't call it that. Like there's many generations of people who have, indigenous cultures have done a lot of things that are being stewards of our planet and our earth, and saving seeds and just being caretakers of the land, but they didn't call it sustainability. So I think really broadening what we call sustainability, and then trying to get away from that like conservation mentality of like we're not here to conserve national parks and things like that. Like it really needs to be looking at, like, one of our goals now, our focus areas is JEDI, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so making sure that we are speaking a language that resonates with everybody, and being inclusive, which means, not having some saint mentality of like, we're coming in to save people. We're coming in to build the community and see what the challenges of the community are and how can we work together, rather than like, oh, I see your problem, this is how I'm going to fix it. And from the university, no, it's about how can we work together, and how can we see the work that people are doing and validate what they're already doing as sustainability, rather than like, oh, it doesn't fit in this box, or you don't have this degree. That's something that's really important to me too, is for students at CSUN to know that just because you didn't major in sustainability or biology or one of those traditional fields doesn't mean you're not a sustainability professional. Doesn't mean you're not doing that work. So really just broadening how you define sustainability and how you incorporate it into your daily life.
Yeah, that was I thought, a really important point you brought up with how Indigenous peoples have been stewards of the land for so long. And we don't call that sustainability. They didn't call that sustainability, but
Yeah.
that preservation and respect for the earth has been here long before settler colonialism.
Exactly. coming in
Yeah.
thinking we know what's right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a really great point. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I also love that community-focused approach, instead of that building up of community approach instead of dictating like this is like what needs to be done and like telling everyone like, oh, this is how you must do it, instead of being like, oh, actually,
Yep.
what is going to work realistically for you? How can we work with you? I love that. Oh, especially because like Revolution Report is a community focused show. Hearing that
Awesome.
message on here, brilliant, love, wow,
Love
amazing.
it.
Okay.
Speaking the same language. Love it.
Exactly, brilliant. Now, is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you want to speak about?
Yeah, I would just encourage folks to, be informed. And this is one of those challenges, like climate change is happening, whether you want to deny it or not. Like it really is one of those things that is truly overwhelming, and you can focus on the doom and gloom, but finding your people and finding the things that resonate with you. There's a lot of good resources out there, like where you can look at how your skills overlap with what's needed for the climate revolution, right? So if you Google climate Venn diagram, you can actually see like, these are my strengths, these are my passions, this is how it connects to sustainability and climate change. And, we don't need everybody to be journalists. We don't need everybody to be educators. We don't need everybody to be engineers, but we need all of those people to do a little bit, right? So don't feel like you need to save the world, but going out and seeing what you're passionate about aligns with saving the world. So like, what are you doing already anyway? And how does that contribute to more sustainable future?
That is an absolutely wonderful message, and it's not daunting, not intimidating. I love that. Thank you so, so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad that was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah Johnson. We truly appreciate all your wonderful advice and everything you've had to say.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, happy to talk about this stuff all day long. So thank you so much.
So that was Sarah Johnson. I really loved this interview. I especially loved her point about Indigenous peoples' land stewardship, predating our modern concept of sustainability. I thought it was really important to mention that and to recognize the different ways caring for the earth show up in different societies.
Agreed 100%. I thought it was a great point. I also really liked her talking about how little actions and changes in your life can help. Practicing sustainability doesn't have to be a huge, scary task. It's actually attainable.
Here at Revolution Report, we love breaking things down and making them more accessible.
That we do. Well, that just about wraps up this episode. Thanks to Sarah Johnson for joining us for that conversation, and thanks to you all for listening.
As always, if you want to learn more about anything we discussed, check out our website at www.handballcourtradio.com. We'll also have on there a link to the playlists that we've curated for this program. You can find us on Instagram at Handball Court Radio, and you can find me, Sarah Livings Walsh. Analisa still doesn't use Instagram.
I still don't. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Analisa Venolia.
I'm Sarah Livings Walsh, and this has been Revolution Report. See you in 2 weeks.